I don't know if you've had a chance to crank through the text. I know that you're a supporter of this bill and the need for a framework. Will this pass?
Eventually, yes. It's a question of timing. It's sort of when, not if. Though the debate right now on Capitol Hill is a lot of if. The Democratic Party, particularly the pro-crypto Democratic senators that are part of the coalition working on the bill, have raised real concern about so-called ethics language. And that pertains directly to the president and his family's financial holdings of crypto assets. What they fail to realize, and the debate right now on Capitol Hill fails to realize, is that we don't have any federal law dictating what is a digital asset, what is a means of exchange, and the legal parameters around those things. So there is currently no law on this. The best ethics language we have is actually passing the Clarity Act, so you have a clear definition, clear rules of the road, and consumer protections that come from that, as well as the ability to deploy capital here and have innovation. So the big thing here is to get the bill done. It's a question of whether or not the current politics will permit that to happen, or we have to wait longer for the Senate to come to terms with this.
Your point is well taken, Mr. Chairman, that you actually need the market structure portion of this to be able to define what it is that you want to restrict the president and his family from doing. But on the ethics provision, because it is obviously part of this 616-page bill, I think it would stop any elected official, president included, and their spouses from issuing a digital asset. It says nothing of other members of the family, like, say, children of a president. It would be enforced as well by the Attorney General, by the Department of Justice, and the whole thing sunsets on Inauguration Day in 2029. Does that really have teeth in your mind?
Well, it does, because ethics rules are still ethics rules. When you outsource this to another, who do we outsource our federal government to? Elections and the people. But in order to hold federal officials accountable, you have to have rules within that regime. What Democratic senators want to do is hand this over to Democratic state attorney generals, to states attorneys general, to sue the president and enforce this law. That is a recipe for disaster. And I think their own party should recognize what Republican states attorneys general would have done to a President Biden under those circumstances. This is a recipe for complete chaos. The question now is whether or not you can have enforceable ethics language and what would be sufficient to get pro-crypto senators on board. Right now, Senator Alsop-Brooks has said that under no circumstances is this enough, but we have to recognize that the president coming to even this language is a major concession for not just the president, the White House, and the executive branch generally.
Well, this is the part of the interview where you feel happy to not be in Congress anymore, Patrick McHenry. What's about to happen at 3:30? We're going to vote on the NDAA. Democrats don't want any part of it. A budget resolution for reconciliation that many folks, we talked to Chip Roy earlier this hour, even Republicans are concerned that it's not paid for in some cases. We've got a stock trading ban. Is all this going to pass?
Lions and tigers and bears, oh my. This is a real mashup before the House leaves for August recess. Look, I've wanted to say this for a while. Newt Gingrich always said the House is like riding a bicycle. The only way is to actually move forward. I would say it a little differently. In this environment, you have the Senate, and the nature of the Senate, you have old bulls sitting, chewing grass, and content to sit in the sunshine. That's what the Senate does on a sort of a daily basis. In the House is a lot like a border collie or a Labrador or some young pup. If they're fully exercised, they're fine to have inside your house. If they're not fully exercised, they can be quite destructive. And that's what's happened with the House Republican Conference right now. For the Speaker and the leadership, this is where coups and palace intrigue persist when there's no action in the House. And so they had to put together an aggressive agenda in order to get aggressively out of town to save the House Republican Conference. That's really what we're doing right now, is just running as fast. The House Republican leadership is running as fast as possible so they can get out the door and save themselves until we come back for September. For more chaos with House Republicans.
Jeez.
And again, I say this as a friend of House Republicans, having spent my adult life working in and around it and loving these folks. But it is what it is.
And I raised a Labrador from puppyhood, and this analogy is really, it's working for me, Mr. Chairman. I understand what it is.
A lot of exercise. Well, the other way to say it.
That you're saying, yes, that is, it's very true.
House Republicans are also like Marines in that if there's a mission and it's something critical, they're eye on the prize. But if they're on leave and it's a Saturday night, things can get rough.
Whoa.
Wow,
you got to email McHenry on that one.
Yeah, we'll have to take that conversation offline.
Not the dogs.
Okay, well, what about on the idea of something mission critical? I think a lot of people would argue that funding the government falls into that category. The speaker decided that he would just try to make sure we don't shut down in September by punting until after the midterms, until early December. It's unclear what's going to happen in the Senate. The Senate Majority Leader is suggesting that if Democrats don't negotiate on a CR, he's just going to attach it to budget reconciliation. Mr. Chairman, is that effectively killing the filibuster?
That's one mechanism to kill part of the filibuster, which has been eroded over the years. But it's also more of a forcing mechanism to get Chuck Schumer to the table. Look, we went through the longest government shutdown in American history, and it was because Chuck Schumer and Senate Democrats wouldn't give the necessary votes to pass a continuing resolution. And so I think that's where we're headed September 30th this year, unless Leader Thune can entice Leader Schumer to pass a continuing resolution. That's really what the messaging is about. And this will come to the fore as September goes on, but not until then.
So is this how we do it now? And I guess every other year, if there's an election coming in November, you guys better get a CR before August recess because this whole government's going to shut down. We simply can't function otherwise.
That's basically where we are. The budget resolution, the 1974 budget resolution, which was House and Senate Democrats' response to Nixon's impoundment, that's why we have this budget process, has been broken. It's been broken for 30 years. Congress has not passed all 12 appropriations bills by September 30th since the 1990s. So we have a broken legislative process that is further broken because we don't have great muscle memory for policymakers on how to do this basic piece of governance. And so that means that we're in for more chaos, not less, more needless, senseless political violence, not less.
Well, it's a sorry state of affairs, to be sure, Mr. Chairman. When we consider the notion of regular order being something difficult to come by these days, hence why we're talking about a third budget reconciliation package now, I wonder how realistic you think the prospect is for a fourth, because that's what your former colleague, Congressman Chip Roy, was talking to us about. He hopes he'll get his pay-fors. He's just going to wait to see those pay-fors until, in his mind, budget reconciliation 4.0. Is there a real chance of that?
Well, again, this is about the House staying in motion. And as long as you stay in motion, you can stave off palace intrigue and coups. And that is what this reconciliation 4.0, or whatever we're going to call it. But also, when you hear policymakers talk about a fourth iteration when they can't get the third iteration done, it makes me question what medicines they're on and whether or not these psychedelics are in fact now close to FDA approval, whether or not they're already in pre-drug trial here. It's absurd to talk about this, especially in an election year, this late in an election year. It's one of the more bizarre things I've heard out of a really bizarre political year we've had in Washington.
Wow. This is the best Patrick
So I'm saying
McHenry
there is
ever.
no chance of a reconciliation 4.0. Not even the slim.
Understood.
All right. Putting the psychedelics down. I thought of you did you see this Gallup poll this morning? We can talk about the vote all day long, but we're getting right down to it here. Americans are the most likely to name politics as a threat to their safety, Mr. Chairman. The latest polling by Gallup identifies 1 in 10 Americans saying politics is the greatest source of risk to their personal safety. More than half of American adults believe the government does not care about them, a record high. Aren't we seeing a reflection of this?
We're seeing a reflection
in our House of Representatives?
We are. Yet these American people that have this feeling vote in these people. This tells me that populism is not some sort of President Trump phenomenon, that populism is going to continue to rise in American politics because of that very explanation you just gave. When you look at the elected officials and say they don't care about me and they're a source of my problem, not a part of my solution, you're going to see unrest. That'll be vividly displayed in not just the primaries that we have continuing throughout this election year, but in the midterms, and then going into the nomination process for both parties, the presidential nomination process that will start next year.
Can't wait for that. Just to end the interview on a more optimistic note, perhaps, for yourself, Mr. Chairman. If market structure finally happens, if clarity can get through, ethics provisions included, what else does the crypto industry need in terms of legislation? They fought for the stablecoin legislation. They've long fought for market structure. What's next?
Tax provisions. We have to have clarity on our tax law on what these digital assets are. And what the holding periods are. We had to define these things for commodities and for securities, and likewise we'll have to do that for digital assets. And the nature of a stablecoin, for instance, it should be treated in a similar fashion you have for your bank deposits, and interest derived from bank deposits as a tax measure. Then we have to define what's the holding period for these digital assets and what a capital gain structure would look like. So there's a lot of work to do on that front. And then the regulatory process will be ongoing as a result of the Clarity Act as well for the next year or two.